The only solution is if you start recording like.
Did you actually just fucking cut out the moment I started recording, you piece of shit? Fix your fucking Wi-Fi. Good lord. Are you there?
Yeah.
You even there? Are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello. I'm here.
It's genuinely concerning me how it's been grey for the past 4 days. Like,
yeah.
That's odd here, where we are.
Now. I think that was dew.
No, dew comes afterwards.
Ew.
No, dew comes after rain. Dew is what's left on the leaves and stuff when the air's wet.
That's still just rain.
Yeah, but it's like rain when it's not raining. It's like leftover rain, like the dew on the grass. And I'm saying dew so specifically because it's so easy to say dew.
All right.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning.
Welcome and good morning to the Barrel Vision podcast.
It's not that
We're
early.
Coming at you slightly earlier than normal.
Well,
I'm not sure if that will show in when the video comes out.
Possibly. I mean, it's only 15 minutes until midday.
Yeah, but we normally start at like 12:30, maybe even 1.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Still like almost an hour earlier.
I guess it's almost ironic in a way that I get angry at this, but it angers me to no end the type of things that other people get angry at, which is not going to be irrelevant when it comes to the deep rock discussion. But it basically, what I'm referencing is, to be fair, a tweet that's been absolutely clowned on, but basically it's someone complaining about Spider-Man 2, the game. And they're like, oh, look, reusing web-slinging animations. Sheesh! Basically that. And they got fucking clowned on, which is good. But it's still, when you just think about it, how like smooth-brained you have to be to make such a colossally fuckwit, brain-dead statement. Like, why the fuck? It's like, why are they reusing web-slinging animations? There's so many. First of all, why the fuck would they waste their time making new web-slinging animations? Because it doesn't even make sense that it would change. It doesn't even.
Yeah.
It's just like, why would they waste their time on that? Right? Yeah, I mean, I assume they have slightly different movement styles for Peter and Miles, but they would have made the Miles ones for the Miles Morales game, so they would have all the web-slinging animation. That is something you do not need to change.
Yeah.
It's just what.
I mean, people do that all the time, right? I saw literally just a video earlier of some guy just talking about how people blew up about like tiny, minuscule, stupid ass, dumb like shit in like games like that. Like, you literally, one of the examples was a Spider-Man game, probably the first one, where for a single cutscene, the water didn't look that good. Like, it was like kind of not amazing, and so they were basically like, well, delay the game. And a genuine amount of people were like, yeah, fuck it, delay it. They need to sort this out.
Like something like water physics and textures is so buried under the technical aspects of the game. Like, that's the kind of thing that has no artistic like value tied to it by the team. I'd imagine by the development team. It's like, oh, that's just water physics and textures. Just like, yeah, we want to get that right, but it's not that's not a creative part of the game, is it? That's not making or designing the game mechanics, or, you know, making character designs, or even just animations. Any of the actual artistic elements of the game, they're completely separate from things like water textures. It's just like, it's not the important part when it comes to what makes a game, and certainly what makes a game like a piece of art as well, because it's just that is so technical and nothing else that it really doesn't matter to me.
I know another example, and I'm pretty sure you would have seen this one, was the Ragnarok. You can't cut down a tree in God of War, and people were like, "Are you seriously telling me that this like AAA like 60-something quid game, and you can't even cut down a tree?" And it's like, why the fuck? You don't need to cut down a tree. What are you doing?
I'm so glad that I'm not like I'm so glad I play mostly not AAA games.
Yeah, because
And even then, I don't play those kind of AAA games anyway. I mean, not that we can. We don't have most of those on Xbox.
Yeah, like all the AAA games that suck, obviously everyone clowns on. But the ones that are good, people still like perceive them as being as shit as the others, or like terrible, right? Like Ragnarok
terrible.
is, generally regarded as fucking immaculate, same as of the Spider-Man game, and yet people are still just finding an issue, which really there isn't one, just because that's something they do, right? There's always an issue apparently. And I mean that's somewhat relevant to the.
Well, I mean, I don't think you see this. You don't see that same type of complaining, I think, in any indie games, and that even includes Deep Rock. Which, honestly, I feel like there needs to be. I don't really want to do this today, but there needs to be a discussion had about what type of game Deep Rock actually is at this point, given its like popularity and whatnot. I would say, if I wanted to put a pin on that, I'd say it's probably whatever Terraria is. Deep Rock and Terraria, I feel like have a very similar like position in like the zeitgeist, in terms of being very, very like quite popular, but still indie as well, but also like reaching the popularity or even more than most AAA games. That's sort of the space that they occupy.
Like a live service sandbox survival.
It is weird that it is basically a live service game as well.
Thing, yeah. But I think Deep Rock is like a sandbox or live service sandbox, like horde shooter, right? That kind of thing. Like it's really only on like a final step of what the game actually kind of plays like does it change radically, and obviously visuals and all that stuff.
Radically.
Yeah, I don't know. The Deep Rock is just kind of a game at this point. It's changing constantly for some fucking reason. Like it's very different to what it used to be.
It's not like it's not a RoboQuest. Which that's not an insult, obviously. I hope RoboQuest reaches the same heights as Deep Rock, but anyway, we sort of went into this. Tyler had no idea what we're actually supposed to be doing, which I find quite entertaining, basically. So I'm just going to lead him on as long as possible. I thought, because we wanted to do something that was a bit more focused on what people have said. Unfortunately, didn't get a great deal of response directly, at least. And I need to. No, but I think we've got enough to go on through certain means. And there is like this really cool poll that someone made on Reddit, and we're going to reference that. But I think the best jumping off point is actually that comment that we got. Because basically, the idea that I kind of want to get at, but also maybe primarily through the eyes of other people, but I guess it's going to naturally spin off into our own takes. Basically, on whether or not Season 4 is good or bad for the game, or what it will be as well in the future, the long-term effect that it's going to have. And I feel like some people have some pretty interesting views on that. Mainly, I just found that one comment we got, and I realised the guy's name is very hard to pronounce.
Most of our subscribers ones are. Yeah.
Nick. Let's go with Nick. So basically, this is going to be our jumping off point, and I think we can. You can stop me at any point. I might stop myself at any point. I don't even know if we need the context part. It's just for context. I've been playing at the start of Season 3 and have since put in 280 hours. I'm not sure how much that personal stuff applies. I just found some of the points that he brought up really interesting. Not even necessarily from like his perspective did it matter too much, because we don't want to focus on one guy's like point of view anyway. But he still brought up some really interesting points. I'm enjoying Season 4 more than I expected, largely due to the small changes in the patch that weren't advertised. Things like making some minerals like Bismol/Magnite occasionally spawn in larger sizes, more varied terrain surrounding the Caretaker boss fight, and the overclock balance changes are fantastic improvements to the general game that will last well beyond this season. Now, I'm going to stop there immediately, because it's such a it's such a given that pretty much anyone who's been complaining about Season 4 will not be mentioning those things. These things just do not get brought up. Anything that is even slightly out of the way, even if it's important. And those overclock balance changes, they were in the main patch notes as well this time around. And I get people's complaints for the most part, but at the same time, I am very much so someone who has like a chronic aversion to both overstatement and understatement. I feel like I am really obsessed with accuracy, and if I want to make a criticism of something, I'd want to make sure that I'm at least considering everything. Not that doesn't mean you have to mention everything, but I do not get the impression that anyone who's complaining is considering everything. At the same time, you still get people, like I saw earlier today, you still get people who their problem is just that they absolutely despise the Rockpox. And I suppose for them, it doesn't really the other stuff doesn't really matter because they just hate it that much. And it still sort of worries me that there are people who do hate it that much. It's like, what? Really?
Yeah, I think once again, I think because it's an issue that we have, which I think is a blessing that they don't know they have, in that they really haven't pushed Rockpox much further as far as normal game modes. At this point, it's like Harold, right? In that he, can Rockpox you, and the incredibly rare, as in you've yet to get one.
Not true. Not true. Okay, so when it comes to the sort of, I don't know if you call it a checklist, the sort of experiencing season 4, I guess I've gotten a bit of everything now because I have faced some Rockpox swarms in a normal mission, and basically how that went was what surprised me, and I kind of. This is probably an assumption. It is an assumption, but I don't know if it's going to be proven true or false, but it feels like it might be true, because basically what happened is I got a Rockpox swarm, and then I got 2 more in that same mission, which sort of seems to me to mean that if you get them, you're probably going to get a few. And that's not uncommon. I feel like I've gotten multiple of like unique swarm types in the same mission, because it's sort of just I've got like 3 swarms in one mission in like a long mining expedition. I've got multiple swarms, so it's the same kind of thing. So it's almost like a light warning in some ways, where it's like if you get one, you're probably gonna get a few of those swarms. As long as you get maybe, I don't know, 5 or more swarms, at least 2 of them will probably be the unique one, or a unique one. I don't know. But yeah, I finally faced them. You see. The breeder is still left out of that, though. I still only fought 1 Rockpox breeder.
Yeah. He is looking to be the white whale of this season.
He's orange whale.
I guess, yeah.
Orange whale covered in pus.
That could be interesting, though, is that the Rockpox breeder might just accidentally become an enemy so rare that it's like noteworthy and interesting when you find one.
It already is.
Yeah, it already is, but like long term, it could get even rarer.
Oh my god, it will, won't it? Yeah. Good lord.
And I think that will be so fucking funny about how there like may come a point in time where people, first of all, they've been playing for like 100 hours and they've yet to get a Rockpox.
But that's just a funny idea, though, right? Do you still hold that, like every breeder in like a lift phase outbreak should be a Rockpox one? Yeah. We still
because if you get a breeder in a Rockpox mission, then you might as well just make it a Rockpox one, or else what's the fucking point?
I like yesterday when we have a normal breeder floating above a contagion spike, it's just like, how are you not infected?
Yeah,
you should have gotten infected just by hanging around here. I don't understand.
It's nonsense. It's kind of goofy how stupid it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I would honestly, though, I would not mind the Rockpox breeder being like a I don't know if the exact term. I think it's like the Shadow Maw in Sea of Thieves, where it's a Megalodon variant so rare that the title you get for killing it, people only ever assume you cheated it in.
Yeah.
Like no one is. They genuinely cannot tell if it is in the game or not.
I love that kind of thing. I wish we had, because we don't really have any enemies like that. The breeder could become that, and I know that they wouldn't want to, and I actually really do respect their sort of stance on this kind of thing. I don't know if sometimes I do feel like it's sort of they are shooting themselves in the foot with it a little bit, but in general, I respect their principle of wanting everyone to be able to experience everything. I really like the idea of not necessarily locking things away. I do think in there's sort of a more, not generalized, but there's sort of a thing where I think in a game that sort of has a community that likes to spread information and sort of legends to each other, that if you had something that was very, very rare or very, very hard to attain, then it would become part of the experience for people, even if they can't experience it, just by the fact that they know it's there somewhere. So I still think that kind of content actually has a place in a game like Deep Rock, because
Yeah.
like the fact that it exists will become like knowledge to a lot of people, and they'll be like, I wonder if I'm ever going to see that, or I wonder if I'm ever going to reach that point. So I think things that are extremely rare, extremely hard to get, still have a place, despite Ghost Ship's attitude towards that kind of thing. So like, you know,
Yeah,
something
and I
like
think,
a dreadnought that can only spawn from a dreadnought swarm, and even then it's like rare or something like that, you know.
yeah, and I think the Rockbox breeder. I mean,
That's
I
the
don't think
Rockbox
it's
dreadnought,
doing
by the
much.
way. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah. I don't think it's doing much else right now to where it couldn't easily be a giga rare thing. This whole thing is giga rare. And I don't know. I think it'll be funny if anything else.
That's the Glyphid Stalker.
Yeah.
Some people actually thought it was in the game, and I guess I can see why you might think that. It's just like because you wouldn't see it. He's visible.
I mean, he would be a pretty good Shadow Edition like that.
Well, nice. I did see some people talking like on just Discord, because I do have a way into the Deep Book Discord. I'm there, guys. I'm there. Not this account, not the guy you're looking at right now. Anyway, I did catch wind of a sort of conversation about the Stalker, and they were basically talking about, there wasn't like a dev involved or anything. There were people, I guess they were kind of just shooting, I guess throwing darts at, well, I don't know what you would call it. And they sort of were talking about how invisible enemies are just in general very hard to implement and make fun. And in Deep Rock's case, I get that, especially because you're probably going to encounter that thing like hundreds of times. This is like, how do you make that fun? And you could like play into like you could employ the really basic principles of just like, oh, we'll have it like telegraph its attack, or like, you know, very clearly come out with visibility when it's going to attack and things like that. But then again, if you make it like really easy to understand, you run into the problem of making it too trivial. So I can actually see why making an invisible enemy is a bit of a challenge, especially because it's something that the community have been sort of not like demanding, but sort of thinking about. It's been on the community's mind probably since the game's inception, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's such an old idea that I feel like you need to do a good job of it, and I appreciate that. Actually, I don't think about it. An invisible enemy is probably very difficult, and it does also sort of placate some of the concerns that I have about sort of what they believe to be like enough content. It's something that I do find myself concerned about, and I look back at something like season 3, and I still think they were sort of a bit misguided there. As in, I think we still agree that one grenade per class wasn't enough. If that's supposed to be the same as like new weapons, which obviously it isn't, and I feel like most people probably understand that, you would try and get in at least 2, but maybe that was unreasonable anyway. Maybe it's kind of just like how it was always going to go, in the sense that we know how much of a different burden it is on them as a development team to make new weapons, that maybe one set of grenades each is enough work over that period of time. So maybe it wasn't fair to expect more. But then you think about season 4 was going to have at least 2 more enemies that got cut, and it's like, I think when it comes to what they think is like enough, they're not too far off, I guess. Especially because it's like season 4 dipped its toes into so many different areas. When you look at the fact that there was going to be at least 2 more enemies, and at least 1 more generic one, the actual concept of, or the point of season 4 in bringing new enemies was not lost on them. I mean, I don't know if they fully delivered, but it's pretty close. Like, honestly, it hasn't surprised me, but it was it's very noticeable the effect that just 2 new enemies has on the generic pool, and then you sort of occasionally get quite a more diverse pool when it comes to the Rockbox, but that's obviously rarer, which is kind of interesting to think about, that you get more new enemies in like this sort of a bubble than you do in sort of the generic pool. It makes sense, because if you added that many,
like,
if you added that many Rockbox enemies, if you added that as many Rockbox enemies as they added if you had that many generic enemies added, it would be too much. It's sort of like something that people don't really appreciate. Although I haven't actually heard anyone complain that they didn't add enough new enemies as well. So I feel that is something that they sort of got good enough for season 4. So
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the number of enemies is definitely not an issue this time around. I think the quality of them is also not far off either. Like, I think we've talked about this, in the previous podcast, and it's developed a little bit more over time. That the stingtails are, I mean, I'm sorry, but like compared to the septic spreaders, they've actually, started working now, which was nice of Ghost Ship to do. And even then, though, the stingtails are still by far and beyond the one of the two, right? You know damn well when there's a stingtail because it is killing you, or it's not itself killing you, but it is screwing you over big time. Meanwhile, the septic spreaders, I don't know, they've yet to be anything that bad. They're nothing close to it as its spitter, which I'm very happy with because fuck adding another acid.
I don't know. I think the spreader. I actually appreciate their presence as sort of just another, not another, sort of just I don't know,
alternate.
Maybe. I'm just thinking along the lines of something soft. They're kind of just nice to shoot at. I don't know, because you know how like the I have, and we might agree on this, of the stingtail having a bit of an issue of being a bit I don't even know if too tanky is the right word, but you don't always feel like you're doing anything to it.
Never kill it before it does whatever it's gonna do.
Pretty much, yeah.
If he's looking at you, more of him is unbreakable, undamageable armor than not that.
The tail's not a weak point, is it?
I think so, no.
No. Okay, maybe they could look into actually being able to shoot the tail off. I don't know, because that means you could actually disable it as a high priority target without actually having to kill it, and that could be interesting in a way. I don't know if that would make them actually too easy.
Without the tail, which would then just spam essentially.
Exactly, and he might actually become more aggressive as well. You could actually, although I guess he's not in a bad place, so maybe don't do that. It might be a waste of time. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, those guys like him. I mean, I had an idea of the septic spreader in terms of like its behavior, in terms of positioning, that it would actually, because it is supposed to be more of a ground-based spitter. That is actually the point. It does end up on walls sometimes, but in general, it's supposed to stay on the ground. So because it is supposed to be a mortar. But I sort of like the idea of it actually deliberately positioning itself above you, which would make killing it more like dangerous to you. I don't know. I thought it'd be funny if it was like above you, and then if you kill it and you don't move, it's just gonna get pissed on by acid or by septic.
So, since he actually has started attacking, I realized that his death puddle is so much smaller than his normal one. Like, Jesus Christ, the size of his mortar puddles is insane, right? And the rate of which he shoots them is really huge as well.
Yeah, like, it's going to become much more noticeable now that it actually works.
Yeah. Which, I guess the opposite is true with the repair bug, in that it was, like, I never realized how noticeable it was that you could keep repairing and, like, keep your progress.
Yeah, he's not talking about wardens, guys. He says repair bug.
Warden doesn't repair anything.
Shut up.
It just keeps them from getting broken.
Shut up. Anyway.
Probably should give them like their armor back or something. That would be something.
No. Anyway, Nick goes on to talk about. He says that the rarity of the jet boots is a necessity in order to not invalidate different classes' terrain traversal tools such challenges, and it makes it more noticeable whenever they're present. Similarly, the new Corruptor mini-boss being rare is also a positive. It's a relatively long and difficult encounter compared to most random spawns, so it would get tedious extremely quickly if it were common. So, basically, what we need to sort of give a bit of a stats update, I think, on the rocket boots and the Corruptor in terms of experience with them. In that we've had some, mainly with the rocket boots. In fact, almost exclusively with the rocket boots, actually.
Not found Harold since that time that I did.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, but rocket boots quite often for like 3 to 4 games in a row.
It seems to be the like sort of the pattern that's being set by everything else in the game. In that you almost get a pattern. If you find something, you're actually that means it's sort of almost the game's decided that you're going to find it a lot, like just a few times in a row. It just seems to be a thing that just happens in Deep Rock. And that means it basically means if you find rocket boots, you're probably going to find a few more of your next few missions. Anyway, so yeah, rocket boots. They are fun. They are cool. They are strong. And they're interesting. And it's interesting in the sense of they, you know, it's like, do they earn being something that's extremely rare? Well, yes, but they're not like this absolutely insane mega buff. Although in some ways they actually are. But it's not like you're just waiting around like looking for this extremely rare thing that's going to completely change your life. It occupies, I think, a position in Deep Rock's sandbox that it probably should, in that maybe it doesn't seem as dramatic as its rarity would imply, but it still is not something that you should be able to, like, you know, guarantee or have as a perk. It really is too strong for that. So it would be very beneficial to people who sort of have issues with the rarity to just view it as something. It's not part of your kit. It is an anomaly. It is literally an anomaly, just in a different presentation, in my opinion.
And I don't know. I think its rarity is a weird argument because of the way Deep Rock works, and rarity works as just luck existing. People get it constantly sometimes. And like I'm saying that there's probably people out there like we, you know, barely ever got it, then got it for a little bit, but still not that much. There's probably people that have got it consistently for like the entire time they've been playing the last season. Like it isn't rare for them. Plus, one of the missions I joined, it was there was a blue level 2 driller. It was clearly brand new to the game. His mate that was a level 10 was like pinging everything for him. They had jet boots in their cave. Right? They bumped into jet boots, and I'm very interested on how that is going to affect how that person plays the game with having jet boots like there and then, like so early on. How different, or how highly or less highly they're going to value it. Because for us, it's a grand new boon, right? That's like holy shit. The cap of our terrain utilization, like, you know, with how we use the tools, the drills, the grappling hook, all that, we reach the cap essentially in that we know how to do essentially everything with them generally, have now been just unlocked by like another tier of like combine slingshotting with the grappling hook and jet boot, and you can maintain really fast momentum soaring through the air. I don't know if you've done that, but I've done that a little bit. You just shoot the ceiling, get enough momentum, let go, and you keep that momentum horizontally, and you just tap jet boots.
I actually haven't had jet boots as a scout. Oh,
right.
Yeah. I'm not even sure if I had them as gunner. Just the other two. Damn.
Yeah, I think I've had them as both of those. I don't think I've had it as I think I've had it as engineer. I think everyone other than driller, because my driller's been like needing a promotion for like this entire season. Since the beginning, which obviously we didn't get jet boots then.
No.
But yeah, no, it is really cool. It adds a new layer onto everything, and I think for us, it's like, you know, it's like holy shit. There's now a new layer to all the traversal. Sometimes, obviously, but like I wonder how like valued it's going to be for new players. Like it's just gonna be a thing, or I don't know. It should be interesting.
Yeah. It's it is a part of it's a part of season 4 that has been met with, I would say, almost exclusively positivity. Actually, I've barely seen a negative thing about it. I haven't seen anyone who truly dislikes it. Certainly, you've still seen a couple of things. I can't remember who said it, so I'm not going to name names. As in, it was a YouTuber, but I can't remember who said it. I don't think it was Access Chronos. He might have said this about them still having the issue that the original double jump perk had. Right?
That was Shadow Axel.
Okay. I'm still not going to say for sure. But, you know, do you think that that is invalidated by low gravity? You know what I mean? Because, like I said, rocket boots is it is best to see it as an anomaly. And in that same vein, low gravity is an anomaly, but it's literally an anomaly, which means if you see it, you can play it and guarantee you're going to have that effect, which basically invalidates your traversal tools. Rocket boots are basically much less common than low gravity. So I feel like that complaint was almost invalid from the start. I don't know. I guess it wasn't until you saw how rare or not the rocket boots were going to be, or the jet boots. I think we're supposed to call them jet boots. But I don't know. Part of me thinks that complaint was never valid. It almost doesn't make sense.
It's a thing that people did like all the time with like the new content. It's like, oh, the nemesis is so terrible. Whenever you get close, he grabs you and insta kills you. That's so stupid. It's a terrible addition. Meanwhile, cave leeches, the detonators, any of those things that use the exact same things. Like there was an argument to be had in that it was very unclear its range. That was an issue and still is. You really don't know. You just assume you just don't get close at all. With the other things, there's a very clear radius. Like the cave leech, if you're within the cave leech will be going for you, right? That's kind of your sign that you're too close. And the not Crassus, just detonators generally have the particle effect. But the Nemesis doesn't really have either, so you basically get like the smidge of a warning saying, oh, like grabbing initiated, and then he'll fucking grab you. Which, once again, still yet to see the Nemesis in fucking ages. So long now.
I had Nemesis the other day. He's a cool guy. Oh wait, no, that was the other day. That was Monday. Remember? You joined. There was like I said there was a Nemesis here, and there was like the whole they left his tomb, his cocoon that he left behind. Yeah, I suppose it is a bit like that. As much like that can be, as much like that it can be for equipment, I suppose, because it's still operating on a different sort of a facet of the game almost entirely. But yeah, I don't think that was ever valid, and I think they are a good addition. Basically, I sort of have realised that maybe the idea of power-ups, like the randomization thing, wouldn't necessarily work. I guess it could work in the sense of, because you're not going to open it up and then it's going to randomize, if that was ever a thing. If we ever got more power-ups, you're not going to open the crate and then find out what it is, because you can't, because you open it and it's jet boots that are there. It's not going to randomize after you open it. I guess it would just be one of the power-ups. The minigame would tell you basically what you get, and it's I think it's. Is it weird that we're a fan of the power-ups in the sense that they would also add more minigames? I don't know. It's like, oh, more power-ups equals more minigames.
Well, I think the Jetty Boots minigame has definitely paid off, I think, in the way that they had hoped it would.
Yeah, it's paid off. It's something to do when your friend goes for a piss. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. It is like, normally, like, you could pull out football, although you'd be on your own, so what's the point? You could start doing the barrel thing, but that's going to take like half an hour to do anything, and it's annoying. But now you just have this little arcade machine where you just, all right, I'll just do this for like until they get back.
I mean,
you can get, like,
it's pretty scary. It's literally fulfilling the role of a video game inside of a video game.
Yeah, it is slightly worrying. Bit of a
the fact that we're just objectively more drawn to the video game inside the video game than the other mini games.
Yeah, like, and obviously we dabbled a little bit at the beginning, but it's not like we actually spend more time playing that than the actual game. Like it's not consumed all of our time. Um,
No,
I mean, we obviously
no.
a little bit, but like I don't know, it is all of it. Everything that they've added seems to be good, right? That like generally speaking, they didn't fuck up anywhere. I don't think. Um,
No,
Other than
and
all the bugs they accidentally made.
well,
And
I do really do find the bugs funny quotes. It's funny that somehow it just occurs, you know, two, well, 3 weeks now into season 4. You know, all of a sudden a bug appears that causes dreadnoughts to be able to be damaged through their armor. Like that just came up. That's not something that season 4's launch did to the game. That's something that it seems like another patch did to the game, which is just like, how does that even? Why does that even? Should that happen? That's a bit concerning. It's just a bit odd.
And I think as funny as it is, and I think it is worth mentioning. This normally occurs. This is not a season 4
No,
thing. This is a season thing.
I've
The
seen
game is
weird.
always.
I've seen a weird bias. I haven't seen it that much, to be fair, but I've seen this thing of people being like, "Oh, this season's so buggy." It might be less buggy than usual. I don't know. It could be. All I'm saying is this is not abnormal. You know, you can't use this against season 4 in particular. You can use it against the game if you want, but you can't use it against season 4. You can't.
Bugs have been more dramatic, though. I think you got to give it that. The no repairing bug is probably one of the most gameplay changing bugs there's ever.
Yeah, there's been some pretty significant ones.
I would say quantity wise, it's about normal. it's about average. Like like people talk about, oh, you can shoot through the Praetorian's armor and all that. It's like, sure, but do you remember that bug where the Hiveguard literally just stopped playing the game and then you couldn't win?
Yeah.
Right. That was a bug they added at some point, and I would say that bug is a lot worse than the current one. The current one just means the dreadnoughts piss easy, right?
Yeah.
The other one game broke. Soft fucking lobby.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Anyway, still, this is something I'm going to echo every time I possibly can until the day I die. Put the sentinels in more places, please. Just put them in. Just have them guard. Really? Just have them guard the cocoons. Have them guard the eggs in Egg Hunt. That's all I want. I just want to see them in more places. They deserve respect. They don't even have a miners manual entry. What the fuck, man? What the fuck? Yeah, these poor bastards. They're cool as well. They're like that's like a proper like designed enemy, like almost fully. Like it's not as complex as a Praetorian per se, but it's still got enough going on to just be a member of like just the Glyphids, and yet he's completely confined to a really specific scenario. It's just like if you made this guy a part of the generic pool in season 4, that would have been something. It wouldn't have placated anyone who really has a problem in season 4, but it would have been like kind of cool to see. It's like, and now the Sentinels are actually there.
Yeah, we are not the same. You hate Hiveguards because they're a terrible boss fight, and
we hate Hiveguards because they're hogging the Sentinels.
Yeah.
They got like those 3-way mouths. Like it's like they got like a jaw on top and like on like the like bottom corners as well. It's like they're weird looking fuckers, and they spill goo when they die. But they're not too they're almost like a tanky but also less lethal septic spreader in a way. Anyway, the other thing that Nick mentioned that we haven't got to was the Corruptor. Moving on.
Yeah.
I know. So our experience with the Corruptor can actually be very quickly outlined because we literally have like our encounters with it. You know, I think for most people, we could probably count their encounters with it on like both their hands. As in, has anyone seen more than 10 Corruptors? I wonder. I'm thinking, anyone? Probably not. Genuinely, probably not. Maybe there's some of the people who've like completed the pass already. I don't know. But our first encounter was together, but we didn't even get to engage it.
because
we just fucking died. Because we just got fucking killed by a
because of a
Corlock.
Corlock was in the same room as him, and spitballers and gay reaches and bullshit. All right, we're not bad, okay?
It's offensive. We're not bad, okay? Not bad. Anyway, and then you actually had an encounter with one on your own, well, not on your own, separate from me, and it was it got stuck.
Yeah, it got stuck in a small cave and so started spewing it all in the same place.
So you did kill it, but it really was not the true experience. And I have fought one properly.
Wow.
One. And it was kind of awkward because I just decided this, whatever reason, I decided to do this mission with Randomizer, and then I encountered the Corruptor, and I was like, really? And obviously, I immediately remembered, well, actually, it's not that important, the Corruptor specifically, but it was still like I don't know. There was something about that was kind of strange. But yeah, I had a proper Corruptor encounter, and it was kind of cool. He's a cool guy. It has a very different, I guess, a very different game feel as a thing to as an encounter to play. It is very different from any other seasonal event, and it's very different from any other boss fight. So immediately, crack that. It definitely feels different. The thing is, I don't know how much there is really to say. It just struck me as very cool in like pretty much every department. It didn't disable any kind of spawns. Not that many boss fights do. You're still gonna get ambushed if you're fighting a Corlock. So I suppose I can't really complain about that. I did get ambushed by bugs a few times, and if you sort of just steer clear of it, it's still not an aggressive enemy when you engage it. It is if you get close. If you try and be near it, it becomes a bit more lethal. But in general, it's still a bit of a passive attacker, even when you initiate the fight. Especially with the fact that it runs away from you. But that trail was deadly. And I first of all, it does do what it does what it says in the tin. It does what it's supposed to do, sort of thematically. You encounter one, you're probably actually going to see the trail it's left before you actually see it. It's done a decent job of making it feel like there's sort of there is rockpox being spread more generally, away from the contagion spikes. I thought that's an important thing.
Yeah, it's something they kind of needed to set up because meteorite was always going to leave. Like that's how like the parabolic trajectory worked. Like it was going to get sent out again. So they had to basically be like, how do we make the rockpox still being here make sense? So they were like, oh, it's self-sustaining at this point, right? And that's probably how they went for it. I want to see them try and explain the meteors, how they're going to still occur, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
Because as much as like my immersion is going to break when the meteor hits, the meteor is too cool not to still be in the game. Plus, they don't like removing content, so they're still going to be there. And even if they aren't, they should be because they're cool. Except the little ones. I would not mind the little ones fucking off.
The little ones could easily stay though, right? Because, and I suppose, that would be kind of whack. I just realised actually. So the little ones, I imagine, it's going to be quite a simple affair of re-implementing them after season 4. Because the little ones, I'd imagine, it would be very easy to explain that they actually can't like do anything. They're too small to actually cause any real harm. Like they're never actually going to go anywhere. They're just going to sit there, basically. They can't become anything bigger than what they are. They can't infect anything because they're just pathetic little meteorites. So you can literally just explain it. They can literally just be these things that you find, and some of them might have play cards in them that you can take and get rewards from.
They're not going to spend time working on making the last season's content make sense. As in, they're not going to recode the event to where the meteorite is already there.
I know, but the thing is, Tyler, this is an instance where it is going to make less sense than it used to. If they just don't change how they operate, it is much, much harder to explain than the rivals. The rivals are a much more autonomous entity. Like, this is obviously getting a bit bogged down in actual, lore, quotation marks, but the rivals are a more autonomous entity, and you can just explain that they are backing off. The meteorite itself, that is a different level of logic or lack thereof to explain or not explain. It's a much harder thing to explain, and it's a much harder thing to accept if unexplained. So I feel like there has to be some kind of different approach taken. I'd be so surprised if I wouldn't be surprised, but people are going to have a problem with it if they don't explain it in any way.
Acknowledge that either next season will take longer or there will be less in it because they spent time working on this. That's what you're signing up for, right? It's not free. Just having this stuff occur.
Yeah.
And I think it's not going to be a small task either, because you will have to fundamentally change those things. Like, I assume them falling is a very, very big part of it. I mean, essentially, you would remake it, right? They would remove the original thing and just add a new one where they're just already there. That would have to be what it is.
But then it's like, the thing is, if they do anything with it, it's going to immediately generate more questions. It's just like, so these meteorites have just been sitting here all this time.
No point. There is no point in that being in the game. Right? The play cards won't matter. They'll just give you a bit of XP. They are not worth having in the game if they're just sitting there. So why put in the effort? It's a bit of a shit situation, really. The only real solution is if the meteorite continues to be there and it's just like Rivals again, where it's just like, oh, but it's not doing much. So, yeah.
Well, actually, I think this is one of those things where I know that they don't like removing content, but it's such a current thing. Getting meteorite strikes from this rogue comet, mind you, in that. I guess an easy way to explain it, not even an easy way, but maybe what I can see them doing. I can see the explanation being that the meteorite actually crashed into one of the moons somehow, and therefore you wouldn't have to it wouldn't have to be like lodged in Hoxie's or anything like that, but it would still be like sending like chunks of it towards Hoxie's or something. It was never going to hit Hoxie's, but it might still end up hitting one of the moons or something. I feel like, I don't know, maybe they'll do some bullshit like that. Or maybe Space Rig 5 will become the hub, the host for the Rockpox. So it's always going to be in orbit around Hoxie somehow. Honestly, if they did, that's too much foresight though on their part.
Yeah, but that doesn't make sense though, because Space Rig 5 isn't a meteorite, is it?
Well, who knows? Maybe it can become essentially the same thing.
No. It wouldn't suddenly become a meteorite shower, would it?
No, I cannot see them just accepting the comet has just completely disappeared and there's still meteorite strikes happening. I feel like there's going to be some kind of elaboration that they weren't anticipating themselves having to make, because they are going to have to elaborate that in some capacity in the actual game. And the fact that we know that they did not anticipate that. Because of the way that they work, we know that they didn't even think about this, which is really weird, in my opinion. This is one of those things where it's like, you're going to have to phase out the content in some capacity, not delete.
Yeah, they probably bring that up. They're like, you guys, this meteorite falling content, what are we going to do with it once... Shh. Back to work.
Seriously, though, it does not concern. It does intrigue me, though. I'm really intrigued to see what they're going to do. I will not blame them for ignoring it. I would not. But people are going to, say something if they do ignore it. Ignore it in the sense of not explaining, like, how that's still happening. People will bring that up.
Like, I would be down for the content being removed. The small meteorites I'm down for. But, like, I genuinely think the big meteorite is a very good event. Like,
exactly.
Top 3. Like it would be a genuine loss to the game if they remove it, and plus they don't think they'll remove it. So it's really a conundrum of you've dug yourself a huge ass hole here, Ghost Ship, because you just didn't think ahead, or you have thought ahead and you've got some fucking gigabrain conclusion, which I don't know. I don't expect from them, to be honest with you. They're not. They do not pride themselves on their foresight. In fact, they actively acknowledge that they don't have any. But yeah, I don't know. It's a concern for like another 6 months. We'll think worry about it more then.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, because like the corruptors are supposed to be this thing that manually spreads the rockpox, and it's not actually said directly, but I imagine there's some way that the corruptors create more contagion spikes, and maybe this is me really trying to do something, but it might end up being the case where you start out with like a seed of like a contagion, but you start out with a plague heart, and maybe the plague heart generates a cocoon, and that's the meteorite basically, and then it comes out as a contagion spike or something. That's sort of like a way where it's basically the meteorite is still like the stuff that surrounds it is still kind of like an organic material of sorts. It's actually like a cocoon. That's how you would probably have to explain it. And basically, the corruptors are going along planting plague hearts around, and the plague hearts, like, they cocoonize, or whatever the word is, and then that becomes basically what a meteorite is, but without, like, having to fall. But then the meteorite strikes themselves are such a cool thing to happen as well. So you almost don't want to lose that. So, like, trying to explain it in how they're just there is almost kind of, like, bad, because you almost want to retain the fact that you get meteorite strikes because it's cool, so it's like it is such a conundrum on like multiple levels. It's like you can see why it's more complicated than the rival stuff, right? You can see.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, that's why it concerns me.
Yeah, it's a I don't know. They're gonna have to bite a bullet in one way or another, right? There's no real solution, because I mean, first of all, there are people that would want the rock pucks entirely to be removed, but obviously that's not occurring. So there's already people you're going to be pissing off by leaving the rock pucks in the game. So no one's going to be happy, or not everyone's going to be happy anyway. That's just a fate that is a thing now in the seasons, right? But even past that, the way that you deal with the rock pucks is going to be a contentious thing now. Like,
Yeah,
are people going to have to deal with the immersion breaking of a meteorite falling with no meteorite releasing it? Like, it's just a lingering meteorites that were left in atmosphere or something, some BS stuff like that. Or are they going to have to, like, basically the rock pucks isn't going to go away and it crashes into a moon, or it crashes into I don't know, something else. And so it's there to stay, but in a lesser degree, like something like that. Because I think the meteorite leaving would kind of be cool. Like, I think as much as I don't want to lose the meteorite event, I think if this season event actually fucks off, that would be nice. like genuinely, like if we had 2 season events so far, like, or not season events, just like seasonal entities, basically be like they've backed down but they're still there, then I'm gonna get pretty fucking sick of it pretty fucking soon, right? And like if they release a new season where there's a new threat, and I'm like, I swear to God, if that one backs down but it's still there, and there's so many like lurking creatures just sitting with back throwing shit at you, and it's just going to be so kind of annoying and stupid.
yeah. I mean,
So,
well, they're already in a position where they can't really explain the rock pox in the same way as the rivals, because they set this up all the way back in, well, a year ago from now, when we first like saw the very first piece of information at all regarding the rock pox, is a comet on a parabolic trajectory. That wording is enormously important, actually, because it means that it was always planned for the meteorite, the comet itself, to leave. Parabolic is basically a slingshot, right? Is that the point where it goes? It goes around and basically goes back in the same direction that it came from.
Yeah, it gets caught by the gravitational pull, but then it's like going essentially too fast, and then gets like slingshot back out.
Yeah,
I think it's
they've already or just from the very inception of the theme of the past 2 seasons, it sort of it just tells you that the source of the threat is going to go away. Yeah, like the rivals, for example, as the only other example. They're not really here anyway. They sort of just come from afar, and they just come and go through means of teleportation. I guess they probably have some kind of like station like out of view somewhere that sort of links them to like the main hub or something. That's how they teleport to and fro. But they don't need to be near Hoxies to stay around. But the main source of the Rockpox is, it's directly throwing meteorites at the planet that spread the Rockpox, and that the thing that is causing that is going to leave. It is different. It is just different, and this is a weird thing to get hung up on, but it is actually relevant to the topic of the episode. So this is good. So I am just so fascinated by what they're going to do, and I don't know when we're really going to get close. Well, I say I don't know when. We don't know when. It's reasonable to expect when, that being in December.
Hopefully.
Look, it is. All I'm going to say about that is, I don't care if I end up being wrong. It is reasonable to expect season 5 in December. It's reasonable.
And I'll tell you
it is and isn't, is it? But it should be though. It should be.
No, December is not a good time for a new season. I don't think. Like December is like a fine month for them. Their Christmas updates are always like the biggest shit, and they're probably going to be spending a lot more time working on that than what they want to. So they even need bite the bullet and do what I personally think they should do: get it out in like 5 months, right? November again. Like they need to make this next season shorter, because
put all the main effort into not the theme. Introduce the theme and expand on it in the next season, right?
Yeah, like they normally do. But this one, literally, I'm thinking just add a biome. Like just focus and just add a content that people chew on, right? Or like can see. Like put big content button. Press like that one, right? Because that's what they didn't add this time around, and that's why people are peeving. Also, the time it took for this season, people are pissed about that as well. Those two things combined, big issues. If this next season is shorter, like it takes less time to get there, and it just essentially only adds the big obvious content, like maybe the perk rework as well, like just a biome with like probably the biome based enemies being the seemingly mandatory enemy addition. That's like the only thing we're like guaranteed to get other than the pass at this point. Just enemies based in that biome, the biome, and a like perk rework or just overclock, something like that. Those two things would be then the obvious equipment that people will be like, oh yes, button press, let me experiment with. Yes, love this. And I'm not taking the piss when saying that. It's just human nature. The obvious shit is the obvious shit, and there was no obvious shit this season, and people noticed because it's it's obvious when it's not there. And yeah, so if they can get it out in a short amount of time and get it just simply out, that it's just literally just a biome, just give us something like that. I mean, obviously a game mode would work as well, but I think that would take more than a biome. Like genuinely, I think biomes probably would be easier to make. Like it would be a lot more designing than technically coding, I would imagine. But
yeah.
Just get something like that out quickly, because I also think that this season will not hold a long amount of time.
No. Okay, so this is actually a good thing, and I don't mind sort of deviating because there's some stuff in that guy's comment I actually kind of want to save almost. So Nick, I just want to point out, thank you, because you have done an incredible job at giving us material. And I say that, and I don't mean that in any kind of disingenuous or snarky way. This is awesome, the points that you brought up. Basically, yeah, what you were just saying is a really good sort of jumping off point for how good or bad the whole point of the episode, how good or bad season 4 could be for the game in the long term. It was both short term and long term, but I'm thinking about long term in the sense that how bad, and I've said this before, and we kind of talked about it before, how bad it will be if season four specifically, this season is the only update that Deep Rock gets this year. The
Yeah.
kind of effect that will have really will be really bad, I think, genuinely, right? We've seen the response to season four, and if what I just said somehow ends up being true, that's gonna have an effect. I don't know what that effect will be, but
It will
not
be a
this
long-term
will not
scar.
be accepted by people if this is all we get this year. And I don't know what Ghost Ship are thinking internally about that at all. I genuinely have no idea. Are they? I wouldn't. I have no reason to expect them to push for a shorter than 6 month season. I mean, I think there's very good reason that they should.
Well, once again,
But
that is never breaking a promise that they made. 4 to 6 months was something they said multiple times, right? Like, obviously, they've only ever then done like 6 months, but still. But like, I think the issue would be is that 2023 is currently a open wound for Deep
yeah,
Rock. It is a bleeding, sore mess.
season four is this thing that's just snapped in the middle of 2023, and what it sort of what it has at the moment is the issue of. Now, obviously, this doesn't apply to everyone to the same extent, but it actually does apply to me at least a little bit. So, in my opinion, I think it does apply to everyone to some extent, in that this is all that we've got in such a long time. And then there's the next point that could come to be, which is it's also all we're going to have for a long time. That's the sort of the long term issue of season four, going both backwards in time and forwards in time. You know? It's very strange, and it's sort of in this awkward position, like you mentioned, of where it actually 6 months from now, that being the end of the year, but still 2023, it's actually a really bad time to release a season. So it's in a really awkward position there, or rather, season five is in a really awkward position there in terms of when it has to be placed, or whether or not they even have the capacity to be able to make that happen this year before December.
And I think it is something that, like, with the wound analogy, it literally, if they can get something out, even if December is not the best time of year, if they can get it out for then, it's like, what it is, what it is. Like, that will be a plaster on the wound, right? And it might heal, right? But if we go into 2024 with this having been the only content update we got this year, that's a scar. It didn't heal right. It that will forever be one of the worst
Yeah.
years for this game, and a universally adored and pristine game that it has been so far will have a scar
Yeah.
because of this.
This is
Not
why I understand people. To carry
yeah.
on. Carry on.
Yeah, no, and it's like it's hard to like be that dramatic with an update that wasn't that bad,
Yeah.
but it simply didn't add the right things at the right time.
Yeah. It obviously we have used, I think, this terminology before. In a vacuum, season four is good. But honestly, if you look at it outside of the vacuum, it's actually not really good at all. I think I actually agree with that sentiment, because I like season four, but I know that if you take a broader view at it, it doesn't look good, like, at all, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we waited like 7.5 months.
Yeah.
Fucking insane for Deep Rock.
Yeah,
Right?
this is why I understand people thinking or feeling like they're sort of winding down, and
Yeah.
I don't think they're winding down. I think they have wound down to a point that they're going to stay at, which is not as intense as things used to be. But as in, I do believe that. I do believe that they aren't working as intensely as they used to, which I think is fair. But it sort of becomes a little bit leery, a little bit scary when if that has like a rebound effect where you've earned to be able to not just bust your balls to add shit constantly. You've earned the right to add what you want when you want, kind of, but when it starts to actually hurt the game, you need to sort of take a bit of a, I don't know if even step back is the right word, but
I don't think it was that they particularly worked. They were like let's go, and now they're more like, okay, let's do this. I mean, I think it is that, but like back then they just needed to add content.
They
Literally, they were
needed
like,
to, yeah.
do it, content, do it.
But if season 4
Now,
proves anything, is that the need hasn't actually gone away.
no, it hasn't. But like, it isn't a healthy way of adding to the game, right? It's something we were used to. It was like fast food, right? It used to be we got this huge nugget of content, nom 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 nom, but ultimately it left us kind of empty, right? Like there wasn't that much to it.
Exactly.
It's contradicting, but like there
Yeah.
were golden nuggets, like overclocks and that. But there were some empty nuggets, like deep dives. I mean, obviously not everyone agrees with that, but fuck deep dives. But also, the beer system, the daily special system, not that well developed. And a tasty nugget at the time, and it still holds up, and it is a good addition to the game. Everything was and is a good addition to the game, but ultimately they added it, moved on, added it, moved on, added it, moved on.
I feel like people really I think a lot of people actually oversell the older updates in terms of how much longevity they gave to the game, right? I brought up a point that I did not expect to bring up quite recently. I can't remember when I did. It might have been in the last podcast, but I basically said that it was specifically, I remember, Roughnecks at Work, the update that added escort duty and on-site refining. It didn't actually keep me playing for that long, Up until season 1, all the updates were doing was actually adding content for you to play and keep the game diverse while you progress through the performance pass. I think that's actually I don't know if that's a good way of looking at it, but that is sort of how it's gone. Pretty much everything that they did before season started was actually given more value by the fact that you had a much more I don't know, base incentive to just play the game. That isn't just seeing that content. We didn't have much of an incentive in that capacity beforehand, and now it suddenly makes now you're not just playing to see the content, which actually makes it far more appreciative. It's not just like, oh, let's just play on-site refining because I feel like it. Like, no, let's play on-site refining because I've got. I don't know. It's either part of an assignment or it's part of a daily mission. But either way, it's going to progress the performance pass, and it's like I'm not just playing it because it's just I like it. It's weird. It sounds kind of almost cynical, but I think I'm right.
Yeah. Think about this, right, Harry? If the performance pass wasn't a thing, and I mean, this is why I think it should be more other people, but also if we weren't, YouTubers on this game, what would you have still continued playing after this season? After you've seen everything, right?
Well, that brings up a really awkward. That brings up a really awkward idea. It's like, if the performance pass wasn't a thing, would it have more content? Which it would, not by much though, but it would.
It would be empty content ultimately, and that's not because the pass is taking up time. It's just the pass is giving them time, right? The pass allows them to take the time and work on the content and add depth to it and stuff like that they never had before, right? Because they had to pump out updates every 4 months because people stopped playing within the first month of the update coming out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Update came out, everyone played it for about a week, dropped it. Some people stuck around, those your level 2000s, 3000s, right? Those monsters. They stuck around. And, even Harry, you're level 1000 something or other, right? Like 500, 300 something now. And even you did not stick around, right? If you did, you would probably be in the 2000s. But, you were but a human and not those people.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting. I don't think most of the stuff they've been adding recently would keep people playing, but because of the pass, it is, or people are just playing for longer anyway. And I think that's the difference. The pass truly is the most monumental change the game has ever had. That radically changed how the developers themselves approach making the game. That's why Season 1 was such a big deal, right? It wasn't because of the rivals. It was never because of the rivals, right?
No.
They were just a coincidence, right? When they went into Season 1, they knew that they were adding a pass. That a pass was needed to keep people playing the game, because that was their main issue. They were adding constantly, rapidly. Here, two noobs, everything, bam, booba da boom, right. Like the game's out, cool. There's like I don't know stuff. Um, New game modes, new dreadnoughts, new map biomes, all those amazing
Mac
content,
biomes.
and yet no one stuck around still, right? People still moved on pretty quickly and played other games. They had to do something because it wasn't working really. Like it wasn't until seasons came out that they skyrocketed, right? Absolutely skyrocketed in players playing consistently and just generally, like the numbers shoot up.
Anyway, I
And
wanted to sort of back some of this up because I just it's something I remember reading that sort of because a lot of people might be hearing this and thinking that's a weird perspective to have on seasons. And then I have to say to you, it is exactly actually what Ghost Ship intended, basically. If you go to it's kind of hard to find actually. I don't actually know how you're supposed to find it just from the website. In fact, I assume a lot of people probably don't know about the Deep Rock Galactic website in general. It's not Steam, it's just the Deep Rock Galactic website. deeprockgalactic.com. The season 1 FAQ was an incredibly important article because it wasn't really about season 1 as an update. It was about the concept, them introducing the concept of seasons. So FAQ basically just things that they thought that they should answer is what an FAQ is. Like things that they would imagine that they were going to get questions on. So you got the question of why are you making a performance pass, and then they say it's written here, we're introducing the performance pass as a design solution to engage and reward players, new or old, with cosmetic items instead of letting those new cosmetic items drown in the shop and be unattainable for new players. In previous big updates, we simply just added all the cool new cosmetic items to the shop terminal and the space rig. The shop inventory is already pretty big, so new items will tend to drown in there. Actually, this stuff isn't that important. The concept of the performance pass solves this by turning cosmetic items into rewards for simply playing the game. This works for both new players and veteran players, and both will hopefully have more joy of actually acquiring these cosmetic items through gameplay than by just purchasing them with credits. The levels and XP-like nature of the performance points creates a sense of progression, and the cosmetic tree creates clear goals with some built-in player choice. It's a light system, but still built to create more engagement than just clicking the buy button in the shop. So I think basically what they're saying there is that they always were going to make or keep making like new cosmetics and stuff like that. But
it's actually interesting because I mean that wasn't even my point at all. That is a completely different reason. They added season passes in for that reason because they wanted to give cosmetics more value, right, and make them more interesting in obtaining them. They actually added it. I mean, and once again, the thing I said earlier,
it reoriented the role that cosmetics play. In that they reoriented cosmetics to play the role of actually being a source of long-term engagement.
And not just keep shoving it into the already full pools. But also, and it was in the anniversary dev stream when someone asked them, like, it was a really weird question. It was super stupid, but someone basically asked them like, why don't you monetize the pass or something? And they were like, we don't. That's not why we added it, right? We added it for player retention. It's achieved that goal. Why would we monetize it? And that kind of thing. And so essentially, it seems like the pass was like a monumental point for them as developers, right? That like it gave cosmetics a whole new breath of fresh air, and I assume like it was probably that like before it was hard to justify adding cosmetics. That's why we didn't always get them, right? That could have been it. It was just like, oh, okay, we're gonna throw more into the pile, but now it's like the actual, it's the salt and sugar of the season. It's what gets you through it. It's a weird analogy that I completely just made up. But yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting, and it's why I think us shitting on seasons is probably not fair because I think we should. I don't know. It's just
I don't know. I don't know about that, buddy. Performance pass, cosmetic tree, absolutely not. As in, they do not need to be shat on, and they probably should not be. I might, in the sense that I don't know if the infected framework was a good decision, especially not in the way it was designed. It's been very, not insane, but I can tell you with a lot of confidence, it's definitely the most I don't know, unfavorable framework from a season.
It feels half-assed.
Well, no, I
That's
just
the
mean
thing.
this is going to be the one that most people dislike out of all the season frameworks. I can guarantee that. It's because you're right. I mean, it's kind of half-assed, and it's just the most niche one as well. It's a very simple formula. It's going to create the most number of people who do not like that framework compared to any of the previous season frameworks, where they're all pretty neutral. Actually, the most controversial one was Waster, only because that's like an idea. I know that I like Milspec and Builder's Choice, but they're so generic that no one really felt any way towards them. But you've got a lot of people who love Waster, and you're going to have a lot of people who don't like Infected. So that, I think, was a bit of a misstep. But in general, I am going to hold that based on everything that we've seen and sort of the response to the type of content that's been added, that everything else that seasons have brought to the game is something that they should consider dropping, which is like just basically forcing themselves to create themed content. That is clearly having more negative effects than positive. People
I
sort of
definitely
people
think
sort of associate the two. They sort of combine the two together. But the performance path and cosmetic tree are a fantastic thing about seasons. But the fact that the other content they've sort of set themselves like this formula of always adding themed content is a bad part of it. I like the rock box, and I'm not saying any of those things are bad, but conceptually, as a formula, it's gonna run dry.
I mean, so far, like content added to the game, they have been the most reliably mid to bad. Right? They've always been the most like just content that you just kind of either shrug at or don't like, and like if you do like it, then it doesn't really hold that much weight though, right? Like there's tons of content you like in the game, and they risked it, and some people like it, but most people mid
But
to
that means they're also pouring a lot of resources into content that a lot of people will can and will ignore. They're putting a lot of
yeah.
resources into content that does not have universal appeal.
Yeah. And I think they could step away from it now because realistically, I think Rivals and Rockbox is enough. Two pockets of the size they currently are at, and they could return to them in the future. I think it would be interesting if they return to them in the future. Um, those pockets are, I think, healthy, right? Like, you can avoid both of them generally, right? Obviously, I mean, the Rockbox with the industrial sabotage is a bit spicier. Current state of Rockbox cannot really be said to what the future of it's going to be. Like whether or not there's going to be an infected biome is still up in the air, right? Come out next season, right? If there is going to be, there's going to be like one, like the future of Rockbox is still undecided. But generally, I think two pockets of sizable content is fine. To just leave it like that. But if they go into season 5 adding another one, and then season 6 is a part 2 of that, and season 7's another one, and then season 8's part 2 of that, and they just keep adding bubbles, it's gonna get stupid. And I'm not even saying keep. Like literally another one will probably not be good. Because
I think
I'm
free
really
is
not
like you get sets for free. It's a pretty universal like thing. Stop at
free. The
free.
third bubble was the main bubble, it's the main game, Harry.
That's not a bubble.
Like what type of like, other what Rockbox is like weak point slash status effect against you based. The rivals are like mobility slash status effects against them, right, or some shit like that. Like, what would another type of enemy be that was so fundamentally different that it could basically be its own, entirely support its own infrastructure? Like,
Eat
it's
them.
not eat them.
Eat them.
There's not much left, and even if there is, it would probably be better if it was just normal content. Um, like I don't know, I think season 5 they could not, and I think that's worth at least trying. I think because genuinely, I think people could see season 5 as being an anomaly. They could easily go back to season 6, new giant theme. They could easily do that,
This is the thing.
right?
This is the point I thought we were moving towards. Was basically the when you talked about how they could somehow try and get season 5 out in 5 months. I think they could if they just disband the idea of adding, I guess theme
Yeah.
content. Theme content might not be the correct label, and I'm going to use a label that might actually make less sense, but I think is also still more specific. Content with narrative weight is actually what these things have been, and it's all sort of being sort of mixed to negative in response, and that's the kind of stuff we need to move away from. We got stuff that isn't that in season 4, like jet boots and randomizer. But you look at all of like the core editions, like missions and warnings over the past few major updates. That's all been themed content. Those we need. So even that isn't really felt that much in the context of the game. People are I think people are, even if they don't realize it, sort of clamoring for unthemed core content. They want a biome or a mission type that doesn't have anything to do with some kind of big new threat coming to Hoxie's, and that's how you get season 5 out in that kind of time frame, where you've focused the season around just a new mission type or a new biome that isn't to do with like a story of some kind. You just do that and have a performance pass and cosmetic tree, and that's okay. I do not, because Ghost Ship might be scared of breaking their formula, but I am so confident that people will not miss themed content. They will not miss it if we don't have something like the Rivals of the Rock Box. They won't be like, where's the new threat, Ghost Ship? I was hoping for some new, completely different enemies to fight. I don't think anyone's thinking that. And I think people will actually be jumping for joy if they just get core content and nothing else. If we don't get bubble content again, I don't think people want more bubble content. I think they want more core content.
Yeah.
And season 4 was just adding quite lightly into both the bubble and the core content, but not really adding anything major on either side. So they need major core content again. But they need sort of like major core content, like the weapons in terms of like scope, but for missions and biomes. I don't know. I think it's pretty clear the direction they need to go in.
Would be a very, because season 5 they don't even need to go into that direction. Season 5 could easily just be like they're not doing it for that season just to see how it goes, right? Because I feel like people would understand if season 5 was like a maintenance season, right? Where it's like after those two threats, the DRG company and slash Ghost Ship Games like focusing more on themselves and like developing like that, and then we'd get the I don't know the perk overhaul, when that would be like the example of that. But like Ghost Ship would also like iron out some kinks in the game as a whole, like try and like pick apart some systems, and obviously the perk one, but like basically just some BS stuff. And that is not like a thematic one, like where there'll be a whole new enemies type. And I feel like people would understand that, because season 5, I feel like the number 5 implies that they could take a break this season, if you know what I mean. Like we don't you shouldn't really expect a new giant threat after the last two. That a solemn season makes more sense. And if it goes really well, and I'm not sure if it would, but if it does, then they basically Ghost Ship can just be like, all right, we'll just continue on this path. Clearly, compared to the old seasons, it didn't go as well. Or if people liked it, but ultimately it's still essentially the same reception, they can be like, okay, we'll do these seasons every so often, like maybe every 5, and then in the meantime we do the giant grand ones. I think either way, season 5 should be a more introspective season than the or a core season, let's go with, than the bubble content or the grand content, and like the outwardly flair content that's like, hey, play Deep Rock, there's rivals, or there's Rockpox. It's more like, hey, play Deep Rock because
Yeah,
we're
I mean,
like,
I'd be really surprised at this point if Ghost Ship have the confidence to create another faction that's distinct from everything else, that they
I
somehow
really
believe
don't
that people will all
freaking need
actually
it.
like. Because
Release right now. Like genuinely, do like 3 in a row is absurd. Like, it would have
exactly,
no value if they do another one just again. Like, give us a break, give us a season, make this season be somewhat soon to make up for the really long one, and then come back at us with a game with a new cool faction after like a good break of good introspective shit where we got a whole new perk system to play around with, and then walk into the new future with the core part of the game reinforced, because it has been waning recently, because they've been spending so much effort on other things and adding to them that the core stuff hasn't really been maintained, right? um,
yeah. And
and
holiday events are not the core of the game, unfortunately.
no, not
So
really.
spending time on that, yeah, that still sort of puts I don't know, a finger in my bum. No, what? But the thing is about that, because I had this written down as sort of note, is basically just where's the summer event? Not that I'm like, not that I'm craving it, but
Well,
where is
considering
it?
how many events they brought back recently, right? They brought back Oktoberfest. They're bringing back the ones that they could have done without, really, right? The Lunar Festival, and it seems like that one's going to stay here permanently. They're just going to have a different animal every year. And yet, yeah. Where's the summer one? The one that, well, but I'm also, I don't blame them because it only confirms what we already knew. The summer one was to tide us over during the summer. It was the apology. It was the keep playing. We're keep chugging on, even though there was literally nothing. That's what the summer one was, which isn't needed this time round. It isn't, because the new season was that. So there is no purpose for a summer event this time round unless it's in like next month, which that would do next month, and then that would lead us into August. So even August like doesn't have anything, does it? It's not until September when we would get Oktoberfest, maybe.
No, no.
So you
And then
might
you,
honestly, like, if the summer event's purpose is to fill out a gap, then we probably is going to be looking at July into August, like around that time. Um, that would be
whatever.
like the summer event. Which actually I realise is incredibly soon now. Holy shit! I didn't realise June was over.
Yeah, yeah. This is why I'm expecting something, right? In some capacity, because this is like the time that I think they like start going on break or something.
Well, I
And then
think
it's like, is it?
it's
I feel like,
early.
especially given everything that's been going on, it's like, and that we had a summer event this time last year. I just feel like it's reasonable to expect some kind of news post that tells us something, either roadmap or the summer event
They've
being
been
like announced or something like that.
they dropped the season and they've been completely quiet, right? Like, have they even been doing dev streams?
Uh, that's a weird thing to say. Well, actually,
I'm
I
gonna
guess we can answer that. They have done some, but I suppose the easy way to answer that is if they're doing one today, which they are.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I guess
There you
yeah.
go.
Yeah. Um, Obviously, yeah, they haven't made a post or anything. This is the normal level of deep rock communication. They're communicating to the 108 people on YouTube, and let me find on Twitch. Um, it autofills to our Twitch channel, which is pretty nice.
Oh.
Entirely useful right now, but and like 268, and I realise that's about to play, so I'm going to close that tab before it plays it. Yeah, so about 350 people are currently listening to the devs talk, out of probably 50,000 people minimum that are currently like interacting with the game in any capacity. Um, so yeah, no, good, cool. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Who
Although I
are
think I
you?
know that you're running out of time.
Are we?
I know, yeah. I'm leaving at. Oh, well, I've got to be ready to leave at like 25 past. We've got like 10 minutes.
Hmm. Hmm. Maybe we can just bring it back to a bit of a short-term thing. As in, so far, what kind of effect has season 4 had? Whether that's been good or bad. And I'm asking that because I genuinely don't know, actually. You know, I mentioned that guy that I saw who was like, I fucking hate Rockbox. I can't start. I'm not playing until season 5. But that's not everyone. That's not even close to everyone. So, but is everyone really happy though? Is what I'm more concerned about. You know, is everyone really benefiting from this season? I don't know. I feel like not as much as usual.
Once again, I think overall net positive, right? The game is better. Right? Rockpox is more of a presence. I think the Corruptor is a cool boss fight, but I really don't think he plays much of a role in this equation, right? He's just content. He doesn't actually make the game better or worse. But I guess he does fill out the Rockpox even more, so fair enough. Like an actual Rockpox-based event, like the meteorite. But the jet boots is a really good addition. The arcade machine, as mentioned, makes the hub a lot more interactable and pretty fun. Randomizer, a lot of issues still, but I think it holds a place in the game where I think for a couple of people it will be the shit. Right? I think I could see some people just be playing the randomizer for like the rest of their gaming life on Deep Rock. Um,
Not
Without
me.
spice up some people's games on like the late night. Um, until it gets fixed, it's a bit of a weird one. Um, the weapon balancing, I think, was overall a net positive. Right, the Sabata is in
Absolutely.
a better place. I wouldn't say it's perfect still, but I'd say a better place. Obviously, the stuff done to the Thunderhead and the Hurricane and the double barrel, all that shit was pretty immaculate. They did repair some of the weakest links in the balancing of the game, and break some of the strongest ones. Neurotoxin, but even then, not that badly. Just toning it down a little bit. Um, but yeah, no, I think overall the game is in a better place. Doesn't mean that there's much more reason to play it though. Like, the game is better.
Because there's more
But
stuff in it, I guess.
yeah, but
So,
it's not more to do inherently. Like much more to do at the very least.
but
Right?
what is much more to do? Like if you had a new mission type, you can wear that out pretty quickly on its own terms. It's the only stuff that's gonna, like people want all this stuff, and I think it's very, very fair to want all this stuff. But you've got to keep in mind that there's only two types of content that are going to keep people playing for months, and those are the performance pass and new weapons. And I feel like I feel like I'm really am right about this. They're the only things that keep people playing for months. Everything else you can wear out very, very quickly on its own terms. And the performance pass just keeps people playing that stuff, keeps that stuff feeling more fresh because you don't feel like you're forcing yourself to play it. You feel like you're playing more so just to fulfill this much more base incentive. And therefore everything else is actually just flavor for the experience of progressing the performance pass. So I don't know if that means we need performance passes more often, though, which is something that I sort of think about, is whether or not they should be prioritizing that more than anything else. But then you look at something like polls done on the Reddit that sort of don't inherently prove for everyone, but they paint a weird picture when you see customization as like as the lowest thing on that poll, like by far. Like,
Well, it's
oh,
because it's like, of course people don't want customization. They're always getting it, right? As well. Like obviously, first of all, it takes
well, that
only
wasn't
some.
what the poll I'm referring to. Isn't about what people want; it's about what people like the most about season 4.
Plus, that poll isn't fair because like most polls, it's if it's not first place, it's no place, right? It is only the people who see customization as the highest best content click that. And yeah, not many people think customization is the most important shit about a season or the most anything, right? Fuck all people think that. Even I barely think that,
I mean, the
and I
performance pass is more
care about.
important than the items itself in a way, right? It should all be
Yeah, well,
good, but the actual concept of the performance pass is more important than what's actually in it.
And this polls like what the people care about most right now as well, right? And plus the customization this season's were kind of mid, so I don't blame them for not being entirely positive. But once again, I feel like a lot of people if you were to do a poll, because once again this poll is stupid, of what's people's second most excited thing, I feel like the customization would go up, right? And then maybe third, and it would be pretty high up there, and then it would kind of dip back down, lower down, or maybe probably pull up, but it's not many people's top priority, but I think everyone appreciates it and some people love it, right? And it's the kind of content you can add where there's the few pieces of content they can add where it can be absolutely fucking terrible and they can get away with it. It doesn't matter. The game is not actually inherently worse because of it.
No, I guess so. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. But then you get
I think it's tough either way, right? Considering they literally performance passes is arguably just about as much as an excuse for them to keep adding cosmetics and making cosmetics interesting as it is player retention. We're going to continue to get cosmetics. That's non-negotiable by the sounds of it, which I'm more than happy with, given those cosmetics are a little better than this season.
I think the performance pass is pretty good.
It's all right.
The tree's really shit. I'm sorry. Yeah. Tree's not great this time around. Sorry, Ghost Ship. This is not a W. This cosmetic tree. In terms of what's actually in it. And I'm wondering if that will have an effect on me, because I'm thinking it always takes longer for me to. It takes longer for everyone actually to complete a cosmetic tree. I haven't unlocked a single infected framework so far.
I've done 2 because it's the quickest way of getting the thumbs up and that stuff. Cut through the infected and you can just get basically chain unlock those ones. I'm only a couple away from having all of them. All right.
I think it's time to end it. I think.
Yeah.
Goodbye. No. Not that quick.
Thanks for watching. As I wouldn't say as usual, but as last time, leave your thoughts below.
No. As usual, because I love comments.
Yeah, it's where this one came from.
Yeah, and honestly, Nick, there's something else that you go on to talk about that could honestly sustain another podcast. So, and it might. So, thanks for that.
At least it will definitely come up in a live stream. Bare minimum.
Minimum bears.
Yeah.
How many bears is the minimum?
I think 3 bears.
I love those posts about how bears are they're just so stupid looking.
Yeah, and they're also the most terrified creature known to man.
Yeah, it's so fundamentally wrong.
They're natural tanks that have goofy cosmetics on. Pink anime tank.
Wojtek, the war bear.
Yeah.
Documentary narrated by Brian Blessed.
Is that true? Did that occur?
Yeah.
Good. We live in the right timeline.
It's something I actually want to watch. I don't know where to find it though. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode of the Barrel Vision podcast, which you should, please make sure to like, subscribe, and go to your local bank
with a gun.
With a gun? No, I don't. I don't think you're allowed to say things like that. You don't.
It's Terry. It's an hour and a bit into a fucking podcast. We're not gonna get caught up on it.
Woo! That's the sound that you're going to be hearing later on tonight after you rob the bank.
This was a do not rob banks. But if you're going to rob anything,
if you do, don't mention us. Don't.
Yeah. And don't rob local corner shops. Don't rob family-owned businesses.
Yeah,
And that
don't do
includes
that. I genuinely
yeah.
condemn that. Like, I've never shoplifted, right? Ever. But I'm not
Yeah.
gonna call someone out for like stealing a packet of sweets from Asda, right?
Yeah.
But if you
That's
steal like from a pretty much any like private business, like anything that's not a chain, I kind of think lesser of you.
Yeah, you're a worse person now than previously walking into the shop.
You go to the local jam merchant and you steal their jam, you're gonna be
Steal
in, you're
their
gonna be
heart.
in a pickle. You're gonna
Yeah.
with me
Yeah.
and
If
the
you're gonna
law
steal, do it from like Walmart, because I know most of you are Americans.
or Target.
That's the one.
Or the government. No. Anyway, we should probably stop before we say something that gets us arrested. Okay, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being cool. Thanks for commenting. I know you all did that. And we'll see you next time. Mwah.